Hey, Guru Nation, and everyone watching on the brand new theclinicalscoop.com. Welcome. This is Dan Sfera. Today I'm interviewing Barry Lake. He's the founder of Devana Solutions. He's joining us now from South Carolina, and he's got a very interesting product that he wants to talk to you about. I have not played around with it yet, but we're going to get into why Barry created it, what some of the operational inefficiencies he's trying to solve. There are many in this industry. We just got off an interview Friday with people from Drug Dev, and they're working on solving all kinds of inefficiencies in this industry. So, Barry, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, so just give us some background. Let everyone know who you are and how you got started in research.
Sure. Well, Barry Lake is my name, and I am currently the CEO of Devana Solutions. And Devana was spawned, I originally got into research, Dan, back in 2010. We purchased a research site in Charleston, South Carolina. And that was my initial learning of clinical research and immersion into the whole industry. And it just kind of grew and took off from there. We formed a site network, which was really the impetus for Devana.
Interesting. Okay, and when was this, just so we get a time frame here?
So we purchased a research site in Charleston, Medical Research South, Dan, in 2010, late 2010. And then we formed Medical Research Alliance in 2014. We just learned that as a single site, no matter how good you were, and how strong you were in whatever therapeutic indications, we were a multi-specialty research site. It was hard to get the attention of the sponsors and CROs. And so we figured that our problem must be one that other sites were experiencing. So we went and found sites that looked similar to ours, top performing sites across the country. And we formed it into the Medical Research Alliance. And long story short, Dan, it took off, and the number of study leads that we were having to manage in our pipeline was what spurred us to create Devana.
I see. And is that business still operating? I'm assuming it is.
It is. Medical Research Alliance is a strong and thriving. I think they're up over 25 research site locations right now, and every one of their sites operates on the Devana technology. It was more than just, as you probably know, in the industry, everybody's familiar with a CTMS system, but there's such a wealth of an abundance of paperwork and tracking that has to happen from the time before you even get awarded a study. Things like turning around a confidentiality agreement and a feasibility submission, then having to submit your regulatory packet and negotiate a contract and budget. It was just a very time and labor intensive and paper intensive process.
Sure.
So we sought to automate it by creating a technology that eventually became Devana Solutions.
Okay. And where this site alliance, and we'll put links underneath this video, is it nationwide or is it just in the United States? Where is the site focusing on, or the sites focusing on?
So the sites for Medical Research Alliance, they're across the country in different locations. We have California, Nevada, Florida, you name it. We've got Texas, and we generally choose one top performing research site within a specific state. Like we don't admit two research sites into the alliance within the same city. But my main emphasis right now, I'm less operational on the Medical Research Alliance side of things. I'm full-time CEO at Devana Solutions because in terms of getting research sites adopting the technology. So it was spawned by the Alliance, but now my full-time charge, Dan, is to just grow Devana Solutions in terms of a tool for research sites.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that background. So Devana, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started it internally for your alliance. You just So who engineered it? Was it you who came up with the idea? I mean, do you do coding and all that, or did you hire people to implement what your vision was?
Yeah, so originally, it was kind of in-house. There were three of us that worked together on the whole concept, and initially it was done just in-house. But when it started to take on a life of its own, we had to get really serious about hiring. What we ended up doing was building it on the Force.com or the Salesforce cloud, and because so much of what the technology is about at the front end, when you're tracking studied leads that you hear about trying to get award letters, that CRM or customer relationship management of attaching multiple contacts to each study lead, we think the Salesforce platform was the strongest cloud-based platform, and so much of the tool had the look and the feel of a CRM technology, and Salesforce dominates in that cloud-based CRM space. So it was just a natural for us to go to them, and thankfully they had a program where they allowed us to hire licensed Salesforce developers that were skilled at building on their platform. And so that's what we worked with developers that worked for us to make our vision reality onto the Salesforce cloud.
Salesforce, okay. And so the original idea was to help get more studies for your sites within your alliance, right?
Yeah, well, originally we put the alliance together because we wanted, by being one site, no matter how good you were, it was hard to get attention from the big CROs and sponsors. So when we came up with 25 now and growing top research sites, all of a sudden we became a one-stop shop, if you will, for big CROs and sponsors that were looking for top research sites. And as a result of that, all of a sudden we started seeing a wealth of stuff, whereas as a single site, Dan, would see, say, 350 studies a year, not all of which we would take, but we would see about 350 studies a year. When we formed our Medical Research Alliance, it was almost 2,000 studies a year we started to see. And we just needed a way to manage that study volume and keep track of that flow of paperwork, if you will.
Interesting. And we're going to get into Devana today and the FICO score that every site has. Actually, why don't we start with that? So I read this press release. Every site has a FICO score. Can you get into that?
Well, they don't yet, but we would love every site to have the equivalent. If you think about, right now, the biggest challenge that you hear about is the high cost of prescription drugs. And in the research business, we're really at the forefront of bringing, new drugs to market. And the only way to reduce the cost of, sorry, let me mute my phone. The only way to reduce the cost of prescription drugs is to reduce the cycle time of clinical research trials. And to reduce the cycle time, it requires top research sites that are very good at screening and enrolling patients quickly and gathering clean, accurate data so that those studies can turn new drugs and bring new investigational drugs to market. So Devana is all about, we talk about the pipeline management aspect of it. What's more, the proprietary technology of Devana is the metrics tracking. So I should probably tell you about that.
Yeah, let's get into that. So just so that everyone watching has just a clear understanding of what Devana is for. Okay.
Yes. So it's two things. It's a tool to help you better automate your pipeline of study leads that you're trying to turn into trials that your site will take on.
Okay.
But at the same time, Devana Solutions Ignite is what we call the version for sites. In the background, algorithms are calculating, Dan, the timing and performance metrics that your site is. So in other words, how quickly do you turn around your feasibility submission? How quickly from the time you receive a contract from the sponsor do you turn the contract and budget around and get a final contract to start the study? When you get green lighted from the sponsor or CRO to start screening patients, how quickly do you start screening?
And who gets access to these metrics?
Yes, in the background of Devana Solutions, the algorithms that we programmed are calculating how efficient your site is at, for example, if you are awarded your site might be a powerhouse in diabetes, for example, as an indication. Well, how many historical trials have you done, and have you met the contract percentages? I mean, when you talk about a FICO score for us, if you want to get a mortgage, anybody in this country can't get a mortgage or buy a new car without some kind of a credit score. What we ultimately envision is the metrics reporting capability in Devana Solutions. When every research site in the world is running Devana Solutions, they're able to provide a Devana score, if you will, on how well they perform as a research site. So it can help, we think, bring some standardization to the industry, a level of, professionalism that really is probably, something that would be useful to let sponsors and CROs be able to find the top sites by indication to work on their clinical research trial.
Now this tracking of metrics, is that opt-in for the sites? What if I'm just the average site and I don't want a sponsor seeing that I'm average? I want to use this to automate my study leads.
Yeah, certainly that's the one aspect. Absolutely. So for example, if you're a top site and you're using the metrics reporting to demonstrate that to sponsors and CROs, sure, that's one thing. But let's say you're an immature site, you're just starting in the business and you're learning. It's all about business analytics. So what the software can do for you is you want to know, as the management of the site director, how efficiently are we turning around the paperwork that we're getting submitted for whether feasibility or regulatory packet submission, contract and budget. Those are good analytics for you to know. So for example, if missing feasibility deadlines, you're probably dead in the water, because if you miss a feasibility for a study that you're very equipped to handle as a site, you don't even get a chance to do the work, if you will.
Right. Yeah, we had a client miss a CDA. He let it sit in his inbox for months and lost that on a really good study. So I understand.
And that's important, Dan, because that's real money. I mean, if you miss a CDA submission, feasibility submission, it's potentially $100,000 or more in revenue if it's a study right up your alley.
Yeah, so, that's exactly what I told them. 100 to 300K, just like that, because you didn't check your emails. So as I do like the internal tracking of metrics. Now, does Devana share my metrics? First of all, do you have access to it? If I use this product for my sites, does Devana have access to my data, or do I just have access to it?
No, nobody has access to your data but you. It'd be equivalent to if you think about your online banking setup. If I don't know where you bank, Dan, but unless you share your username and PIN with me, I can't log in to see your banking information. And Devana, I mean, Force.com platform is airtight security in terms of a cloud-based platform. So the only one that has access to the metrics reporting is you and your, who you designate as your site to be a user, or if you have administrative rights at the site, you have rights to see all the reporting. And if you choose to share that reporting with other sponsors and CROs, then obviously you can do so.
Okay. And so that would be helpful to me as a site owner, because I would be able to track my metrics. I'd be able to track things that I know sponsors are tracking using their own platforms, right? So at least I have some intelligence here. And it may not be identical scores if we're comparing it to FICO scores, but at least you know whether you're in the same ballpark or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. Ultimately, look, we started a little less than a year ago, and we've already seen tremendous growth. And just like with FICO scores, for example, where if you see something wrong on your credit report, Dan, you can adjust, you can make a application to change it or adjust it or update it. I envision the same thing down the road, but the whole point here is, you made a good point just a second ago, Dan. You said, sponsors and CROs are tracking timing and performance metrics. And that's very true. They are. Right now, they're gathering their timing and performance metrics on the sites that they work with. And so we think it's a lot more powerful if you're a site to have control and be able to see your own timing and performance metrics and be able to use it as a check against the sponsor, for example, or CRO, and compare and contrast your metrics and how you know you're performing on enrollment or various measures on a study versus what they're showing. The beauty of Devana, actually, Dan, is that it's all not just when our support team gets somebody up and running and loads their historical information, you're going to have your historical metrics in there, but then it's gathering and calculating your real-time performance metrics too. And that's something that's very appealing to sponsors and CROs.
So I want to get into that, probably the next thing I'll get into. However, tell me more about automating your study leads. So let's say I'm a site in Orange County, California. Okay. I'm a research naive site, right? I've never done studies before, but I want to get into studies. What can Devana do for me, or does it do anything for me?
Well, it can do a number of things. First of all, if you're a new site and a naive site, you're probably going to have various, I'd say, lead sources that you're going to be wanting to start to work to generate study leads. So, for example, perhaps there are study brokers that are out there that you may be getting leads from that you want to keep track of in Devana. There may be just you started a site with, and you might have relationships with some CRO contacts or other friendly sites that maybe you're in an informal network, or maybe you joined a formal network of research sites and the leads are coming from them. So right away, day one, you're keeping track of where your study leads are coming from, so you know what the best sources are.
So it's essentially a CRM for your study leads, right?
Exactly, and that's a big feature of it at the front end. And so, for example, and it can break down the reporting, Dan, by, so for example, let's say you're getting study leads from as a brand new startup site, and let's say you're getting them from a myriad of sources, but also what CROs are you seeing them from? What sponsors are you seeing them from? And you might learn that one of the big CROs you're more therapeutically aligned with than other CROs. As a result, you might want to try to establish more contacts through LinkedIn, through your outreach with that other CRO that you're very therapeutically aligned with. And Devana can give you that data so that you know who you're most therapeutically aligned with.
Interesting. So CRM on the front end, and on the back end and internally, probably even more important to me is the metrics. And so just talk about some of the metrics. I know you talked about a few. Just go through. I'm sure this can track a whole bunch of stuff. And then I want to get into the input. So does someone have to actively input this data in there? Because my coordinators already have too much to do as it is. Just explain that process to me.
Well, so the beauty of what we've designed is that a lot of the timing metrics, and by timing metrics, you asked me to talk about some of the metrics. So by timing, we mean how quickly and efficiently do you process things like CDA turnaround, feasibility turnaround, submission and turnaround, regulatory submission, contract and budget. And what it's doing for you is your BDP, somebody at the site right now, Dan, is responsible for handling that process. Ideally, that person with Devana Solutions Ignite for sites would use Devana to help them automate and have automatic reminders. It basically replaces, for most sites, what is like either paper or Excel spreadsheets that are static. And instead, you get this automated real-time, program that basically allows you to keep track of everything, including, we did a study, Dan, that from the time you hear about a lead to the time a study becomes an actual award letter, it can be touched by almost, I think it's 7.8 people on average, we calculated at Big Pharma. So just one study could be, and what Devana allows you to do with its technology is link multiple contacts to the same study lead. So it really helps. And as you're running, all of us work in Outlook a lot. As you're working in your, I assume, Dan, are you like everybody else? You're tied to your Outlook pretty heavily?
No, not at all. I actually never used Outlook, so I either have everything go through on my iPhone in a catch-all box, or I
Hmm.
just when I'm on the browser, I'll just have different windows popped up. So I've never actually gotten into Outlook, and then I use my Apple Calendar. But I'm one of the few. Like there, most people in this industry use Outlook.
Yes, and that's what we find at most of these research sites. They're in their Outlook all the time, and what we've customized within Devana is a technology that if somebody's working in their Outlook with Devana working in the background, when they get an email, let's say from a new or a new sponsor contact, Devana intuitively knows whether or not that contact is already in the system or needs to be added. So that's
Mm,
just one feature that helps from a CRM tool to win more study awards. That's just one feature that helps the site build a big database of contacts very quickly, and not
hmm
have to take time to like drag and drop each different study contact into a different folder associated with that study. It just helps you automate and be more efficient as a site.
Does it do anything as far as budgets, contracts, and budgets?
Yeah, I mean, we can. There's a lot of customization that is very easy to. One of the nice things about the Force.com platform is that it allows our support team, different users at sites that have gotten on Devana will require different tracking features, and certainly tracking of contract and budget negotiations is a feature that we've easily added for sites that desire it. So it
Interesting.
doesn't
Is
come
that
with
an
a base.
extra cost or?
You know, at this point in time, we believe it's such a great technology that we're not limiting the amount of support time that our training and support people provide to each site that we want to get on the platform. They're very good. Cindy Tremblay and her team are very good at training new site users, and it's a user-friendly program.
And ideally, who would use this at the site? Is it ideal to have just the site owner or site director have access to this so that you can track what your biz dev people are doing or what your contracts and budgets people are doing or even what your coordinators have been tasked to do? Or does everyone get a login and have some work to do on this?
You know, that's a great question, and it varies by site depending on who's responsible for what in the workflows. Generally speaking, a BD person, if a site has a full-time person responsible for obviously bringing in new studies, that's a logical user. But you know, we've seen sites that have been adding regulatory people and operations people, and a lot of times, sometimes the executive director or owner of the site is somebody who's heavily involved in study leads and trying to convert them into study awards, and so they'll be on it. What's typical at most sites is a minimum of 2 people are usually using Devana, and generally BD and ops people for the most part.
Mhm. And just as we're wrapping up here, have sponsors or CROs been interested in this? In, I guess, looking at I know that the site metrics are kept private. That's for the sites to use. Have you gotten any interest from sponsors or CROs?
Yeah, we have. We're working with one of the very large CROs that's been a good partner with us. INC Research has developed a program to align with some of their top research sites. They call it the Catalyst program. And, INC has always been a very site-friendly CRO, if you will. And
Mhm.
they very much believe in helping advance new technologies. And when they saw our Devana technology, they said, hey, we can really see how that would be good for sites to help them save time, be able to track their metrics. And so they've been a big supporter thus far, but we're now starting to see a lot of interest from other CROs.
Right. And that would make sense because CROs are starting to get more involved in managing sites. I know Quintel's just bought up like 80 sites in Florida recently. So they're getting more into owning sites. I know BioClinica did the same thing. I think it was BioClinica. So this would only make sense for them. So INC Research is one of your clients?
Yes, they currently are a very good client of ours, and then yes, you're right. I mean, CROs, what you speak of when you talk about, mentioned Quintiles, you mentioned BioClinica.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general there's a trend by CROs to align with align with research sites, and I think it's along the lines of trying to shrink that cycle time, Dan, to bring a drug to market. Because if you own top sites, I guess is the theory of some CROs, that you will be better able to leverage those sites to more effectively screen and enroll and ultimately complete clinical trials faster.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Devana as really a disruptive tool, though, Dan, because, as opposed to, if you can use Devana metrics reports to identify, back to the point of a FICO score, if every site in the world is running on Devana, which I would love, then I think in a couple of years' time, any CRO could say to a site, well, send me your Devana reports, send me your Devana score. If you say you're good in, pick the indication, diabetes, hypertension, oncology, send me your report on all of your historical metrics performance across those studies. And Devana can do that.
And does it track patients enrolled, screen failed, randomized, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that information we integrate out of a CTMS tool. So every site's on a different CTMS. And ultimately, right now, it's about 5 minutes per week to manually enter that data from a CTMS system. But
5 minutes?
Yeah, about 5 minutes per week, literally, to pull in that. We've got an ability to show them how to, export that data into an Excel template and then quickly upload it into Devana. Ultimately, we would like to, and are already talking with a number of the CTMS makers about making the process seamless, Dan, to where it would just we'd automate and integrate with those CTMSs.
I see.
And we think of Devana as a very good and companion front end product, right? So a lot of CTMSs have very limited capability on managing the front end of the BD process that Devana really excels at. And so I think we're very, very complementary offering to a lot of CTMS products.
So if I'm a site that signs up with Devana, I get the CRM, I get the CTMS, I get the metrics that I have access to, and there's even some things about budgets and contracts, right?
Well, there's no CTMS associated with Devana. You usually are going to be on a CTMS already.
Oh, so if you have a CTMS already, it will integrate.
Yeah, we're working ultimately to make the integration automated, but right now it's very simple it's about a 5 minute per week system to integrate and pull the numbers out of whatever CTMS you're in and populate those numbers into Devana so that you can provide reports on the actual enrollment statistics that are housed in your CTMS.
Okay, I understand. All right, so how many, and I guess let's end it with what does it cost a site to have this product?
Yeah, so it's really economical. A typical site, Dan, is going to be about 2 users, and the cost to put 2 users on Devana is $447 per month. So it's a little over $5,000 per year, which, we think, back to the point in this conversation when you talked about feasibility submission, gosh, if Devana's automated reminders for feasibility date submission deadlines save you from missing just one deadline, I think the site subscribing to Devana has paid for itself in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm. And how many sites are using it now?
So we're approaching very close to about 100 physical site locations right now on Devana, and we expect that we're going to increase by 200% here in 2017. So we expect that we'll be, growing towards 300 physical site locations by the end of 2017.
100 sites right now. You expect up to 300 by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's pretty good. I mean, you guys, I've only started seeing the marketing as of 2016, right? Were you doing this prior to that?
Yeah, we only did we really spent our hard launch, if you will, was at the Association of Clinical Research Professionals, ACRP conference, April of 2015. Yeah. And so, we really look at it, we're kind of in our infancy. We're really less than about a year since launch. And to already be in close to 100 site locations, we think is pretty significant. And I can tell you, I'm in Charleston with the sales and support team right now, and the number of inbound inquiries that we're getting from sites and site networks and SMOs has been incredible. And so we're going to try to very hard to make sure we keep up with the demand.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Barry, for sharing. Let's stay in touch, okay? And
Absolutely.
I'll definitely want to keep updated on your progress and feedback you're getting from sites. So maybe we'll do another interview in about 6 months and see if you're headed towards your goal. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, Dan, I just want to thank you and Clinical Trial Guru for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Barry, and thank you everyone for watching. This is Dan from the Clinical Trials Guru and theclinicalscoop.com. Take care.